Hello, time for the edition of the Thought Project, and today I'm actually filming outside. I thought it'd be nice to get a little break from being indoors so much and just everything that I've been doing. I've had to reconfigure computer systems this week, so I really only have time to do like one or two shows a week at most. Hope you're all doing well heading into Thanksgiving here in the U.S. if you're watching within the U.S. So the big thing right now is that, let's start with the economic stuff. U.B.S expects the U.S. Federal Reserve to cut interest rates by as much as 275 basis points in 2024. And that's times for the market consensus, and that's a huge number of federal rate cuts by as much as 275 points in 2024. The other thing you have to note is that there's a huge number of changes going on politically with the presidential races in the U.S. So you've got to look at the fact that, the G.O.P debate race right now, as far as the G.O.P goes, it's Nikki Haley and Governor Dan DeSantis are actually right behind Donald Trump. So those are the two people that are actually still contenders that could possibly catch up and overtake him on the way to the election race. Of course, Donald Trump is going through a bunch of issues in court that just, there's like multiple trials going on. It's just a lot. And of course, as you probably noted, some of it actually ties into Hunter Biden's issues and what he's going through legally. And of course, the Hague has gotten involved. So if you know what the Hague is, you have to go look that up. But when they bring a prosecutor over from the Hague to work on the issues, it's a big deal. That is bad. So I'm just letting you know all of that. As far as what U.B.S is, the bank, it's actually out of Switzerland. It's a large private Swiss institution, private bank, largest private Swiss institutional bank in the world. Has a huge network. The Iranian government told the U.S. this week that they will not enter the war with Israel on Palestine's side. I find that to be very interesting because I'm firmly convinced that they actually are responsible for Palestine's actions as part of the whole situation with the Russian mafia and the Chinese CCP. Now, it's also important to notice that as all this is going on, that U.S. President Joe Biden said he still believes China's President Xi Jinping is a dictator, although he did visit with him this week. And after President Biden visited with Xi Jinping this week on Wednesday, I'm still trying to figure out why President Biden was going to visit the guy if he's a dictator, right? He's a bad guy, son or supposed son, alleged son is in trouble, money issues. We've got Burisma going on, Chinese CCP money, it all goes back to the Russian mafia and essentially the FSB, but it's just a confusing controversy in light of all of that. And so I'm really just, glad Biden's staying firm on that as an issue. But economically, it's important to note that China's economy saw a huge deficit of 11.8 billion in foreign investment as a deficit leading up to September. And basically investors and companies are leaving over the concept and concern that Beijing may collapse, which is very real. So, obviously, Janet Yellen has gone back and forth a lot this year with China and not been successful. And at the same time, the U.S. Department of Defense has had to expand bases, and there's just constant conflict from the Philippines. And of course, our own Navy was out over the summer with Australia on the waters, the Pacific, going to conflicts with Russia and China. And there's been some really serious attacks by Russian and Chinese Navy, even in recent weeks off the coast of Alaska. So it's a big deal. Just say something's going on. It's like, this is massively going on, and it's just weird. But it's also important to note that Putin's war planning in the Ukraine has caused the company Yandex NV is going to sell off its Russian business, and they do own a popular search engine and ride share service. So, there is a feeling in Russia at this point as Putin continues the attack on the Ukraine. He's not really well liked as it is, but there's this fact that all these businesses are suffering as a result, and leaving. So, both Russia and China are seeing the lacking dividends of their behavior. And that changes world economics, then it trickles down to the rest of us locally. Obviously, here in the U.S., we still have really high food prices and way too high gas prices. And we've got a huge number of people that are either homeless or underemployed. And then, we've got the migrant crisis here too. So it's just a lot. Serious riots have broken out in Washington, D.C. as pro-Hamas terrorists are actually attacking the police. And if you see the pictures of the footage I have, it looks like something out of another country, like a third world country. It doesn't look like the U.S. at all. And I wish the very best to all my friends still in the D.C. area. I know a lot of left, but there's a lot of them that are down there still. I just hope you're all okay. Hang in there. It just looks like really tough times. So it's got to be craziness. The U.S. Department of Defense failed for the 6th consecutive year on spending. They were not able to have a clean financial audit, a goal routinely achieved by other businesses, just be noted. But they have a fraction of its 3.8 trillion in assets and 4 billion in liabilities. The Pentagon comptroller Michael McCord told the media that he says doesn't matter. So you've seen all the developments that I've gone through and economically and what they're spending on as far as weapons because of the issues with Russia and China right now. So they're just like F it, we're blowing this budget, we don't care. And nobody's really going to argue about it with them right now because of everything that's happening. So I do get concerned though because of all the issues I've covered with all these people that are Russian and Iranian here in the U.S. not being managed and taken care of. And I'm concerned over the Department of Defense not taking some of those domestic threats seriously enough because Homeland Security has been testifying that the issues are even too great for them in some cases, which is kind of disturbing because they were created because the FBI couldn't handle it all. So, they kind of something's got to be done to play catch up there. Syria's Bashar Al-Assad. France has decided to put out a warrant for his arrest along with his brother Mahir al-Assad and military general Hassan Abbas and Bassam al-Hassan. Crimes against humanity and war crimes. So go France. They've decided that Syria is a real big problem right now and they're going to get after them. On the lighter side, Bud Light, Benoit Gerbin, the U.S. Chief Marketing Officer for Anheuser-Busch, quit on 11/16/2023 as sales have slumped over the videos and ads with Dylan Mulvaney. They dropped over Bud Light errors and ads with, just all the ads. It's, whatever you want to call it, an error, a bad decision, bad judgment. Obviously, if you're in marketing, you're supposed to be doing testing analytics before releasing something. So choosing Dylan Mulvaney, which is as unsuccessful as she has been, is a clear example of their kind of errors. Just total incompetence. It's important to know that Sean P. Diddy Combs, the American rapper, U.S. rapper, who has had a long-term relationship to Jennifer Lopez. I don't believe Jennifer Lopez has a real relationship to Ben Affleck. Having met her like 20 years ago and how ridiculous she is and how much part of the FSB used to be called the KGB she is, I'm 100% convinced that she is actually P. Diddy's long-term partner. And we're just not seeing it in the media. Or it's being suppressed. P. Diddy had a recent settlement with Cassie Ventura, the artist, who is represented by Douglas Widower, and he was represented by Ben Brafman, and they settled on years of abuse and finally paid to Cassie. One thing I have to say in my stories and coverage of Kendrick and his agency, if I've seen kind of mean at times, a lot of my frustration is actually with Patricia, it's with Dan, Buffalo Bill, the Swiss Miss, Karen, Cersei, and Wilhelm. I came to the conclusion a long time ago, I finally listened to Kendrick. He was somebody who had made some errors in his life earlier, and he'd been pulled into a lot, and I noticed there were all these women back in Iowa ordering around their Russian. I saw that in the D.C. area, and the fact that he said that he was being ordered to come back to me to steal and to try to find a way around it, and all these bizarre people I'd met that turned out to be part of the FSB, they kept insisting I, pay money to be married to him. And I just said, I'm not going to support a bunch of dumb traffickers. I'm certainly not going to support you all in destroying the rest of the world. So, I undermined them and got help, got to DHS, got the FBI. But the main point about Kendrick in the end and what really freed me was that I instead of just hearing him being angry and thinking he was being pompous, because he was a man, a white man and a Russian man, when he said he couldn't hire me because I wasn't Russian, I thought, you know what? He's right. He really can't. He really can't hire me because I'm not Russian. And he really couldn't marry me because I'm not Russian. And all this meant quite possibly that he'd wanted to do those things. But with him being basically a labor trafficking victim himself and trapped and not being able to make any actual life decisions, nobody could really say what he would have wanted because he's saying he didn't have a choice in those types of things. And I decided I believed him, and I actually reported to APS, and I actually have some really good friends up at DHS that said, listen to that, instead of the anger, guy gets mad and takes dumps in meetings like talking about not doing that, all this other stuff. Look at that, he is sick, because that, and look at what he's saying. And of course I went off after that, and I spent 5 years doing mandated reporting and taking care of people in really bad situations and where there had been abuse. And I saw one situation with a woman where she'd married an older man who was part of the U.S. military, and he was a pretty high-ranked Marine officer, and she was from China, it turned out. She'd lied about her background. She was abusing him, and she was planning to steal all of his money. And I can tell you about Kendrick with his current supposed spouse. That person was a man, is from Peru, which is the center of cocaine use and development in the world. And they do have a history in South America of being lined up with Russia and the Chinese, the FSB basically, and having some of these people had transitions. That person, that current supposed spouse, was interfered with us at Luther College in Iowa and created arguments there. And mother of that person who was posing as a professor on the staff actually is friends with Patricia and Dan, and ended up being the part of the reason that my money for medical school was stolen. So it was just a way of this dumb FSB transfers of money. And there was a very real reality with Kendrick, as bad mood as he could be, that he was concerned about me being killed. And so by the time I got to my early 30s, I just decided to listen to the guy and report him as a victim of abuse. He's not a U.S. citizen, I don't think. I think he's actually really from Russia. And he may not be Jewish or Christian or Muslim, or maybe he's all those things. It doesn't even really matter, because in the end, I chose to listen to the reality that he actually didn't have choices in his life, and decided that he really was a trafficking victim, and a high-level one that appeared very differently and is postured very differently, and now married to someone who had openly talked about eventually marrying him with her mom, his mom, because the current spouse used to be a man and is now posing as a woman and a model, had said they were going to kill him. And since the U.S. government is intervening, eventually he's probably just going to be killed by the current spouse, if they're even legally married. And so when I look at all these dramatic scenes with some of these different, artists and performers, the one thing that I'm always struck by is that many of them are actually not able to make real life decisions, or even with people they would choose. You have to consider with Kendrick, maybe he wouldn't have married anyone. And maybe he wouldn't have even worked in that industry, that it was all stuff put together for him by the FSB, and he just didn't have it together to get out of it. And that's where I would really leave, is that I ultimately decided to focus more on a professional life and to report him as somebody that was being abused. And that's where I leave it. That's where I leave you, because I don't have anything else beyond that, to say that he was my spouse or all these other things. We don't know that. We don't know that, because it wasn't there. I know there was a bunch of people involved who were part of the FSB and threatened me and said they wanted to put us together and take us apart, so they could all make money. And he was supposed to be, tortured for the rest of his life, and blah, 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 drama, disassociative, idiot, stupid, plan to traffic everybody on these assumptions. And I just went, no. I'm going to turn you all in, and I'm going to report this guy as a victim of abuse, and I'm going to do it at the national level because you made the mistake of messing with me, and that's what I do. And you need to understand, if you ever do run into me, that I really did live in the D.C. area for 19 years. I got to know the federal government very well. I do have contacts at the federal level, DHS, and so their agencies. And I really did become known to as many people as possible. And I really did work in home health. And I really did get a home health clearance. And I really did take care of people who had family that worked at the Pentagon, the CIA, the NSA, and the World Bank. Please, just get lives. It's all I can say to some of these idiots. It's like, find somebody else to traffic, because I'm not the one. And I really will report people that I think are being abused as victims of abuse. Kendrick is now over 60, and this person is supposedly forced a marriage with him. So it sounds like a forced marriage. And, all the pictures of her online are with all these other men. She claims that they're her kids, and the Australians have said they're intel said they're not her kids, that these are just other roughneck men, gangsters, and they're all young and mean and strong, and they're surrounding Kendrick. And you got to look at all that. And, you look at Patricia, the fact that she's so willing to attack and hurt people, and Dan, the way Cersei and Wilhelm are, and what they've all done, and you got to go, and Karen, the Swiss Miss, and say, nope, this is a guy who's just been a victim of abuse, and he might be a really high-profile one that people wouldn't spot. But, in the end, I did what I had to do for me, because I had to get out of it, take care of myself. And sometimes the best thing you do for somebody is take care of yourself, get your situation straightened out, and report what's going on with them, report what's happening in their life. So, and that is economics. It's good for your career, and it's good for you. So anyways, that's a show today. That's a thought project, just so you know, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I did one Spotify podcast this week, and I may hold off on Spotify for a little bit. We'll see. I don't know when I'm going to have time to do that show as well, but no singing or other stuff today. Just this little show where I sit here and talk to you just like this. If you have a chance, check out my album, The Risk, the Reward, the Pinot Noir. It's on Amazon Music, Deezer, Spotify, and Tidal.